Rodang La is a trek in the eastern end of Bhutan, which is much less visited than the western end. And it traces the old, what was called the Red Rice route, or the Royal Trek. So the people in the far east used to go across these passes, the Dong La and the Rodang La, and they'd trade rice for stuff coming in from Tibet. So it was an old trading route, and it had fallen into non-use because the road that was built in the early 60s went through to the east, and so people then used the road to trade, obviously. But it's a super route that goes along just below the northern border with Tibet, full of interesting scenery, villages, valleys, passes, ridges. The itinerary starts by flying into Bhutan at Paro, and then trekking up to Taksang Monastery, Tiger's Nest Monastery. We then fly on to Jakar. So this is a thing that has really changed things for this trek in the east, and that is that until very recent times, if you wanted to do the Rodang La, Dong La trek, you had to first travel right the way across Bhutan, which took several days. Now you can just fly to Bumthang or Jakar, and so it makes it easier to start the trek.
Videoing me, are you?
I am, Michael, yeah. You're on TV.
Great stuff.
You don't get right up underneath the biggest peaks of Bhutan, but they are there on the not far distant border, so you get really good panoramic views of the big peaks and very remote uninhabited mountain country, and looking out beyond into Tibet, so lovely views. As you progress towards the east, you go to places that people very rarely go to. A little town called Luntsi, Tashigang in the far east, another one called Tashiyangsi, one of the things I'd always wanted to see was the old cantilevered bridge, because I've seen pictures of it in the past, and it's always fascinated me. I mean, it's a beautiful looking bridge, and sure enough, when we got there, it didn't fail to impress. I mean, it was just a magical place. Once you get away from the main road, then life is very traditional. Sunday, vegetable market day in Tashigang. Everywhere you look, there are people on the pavement selling vegetables. People take you into their house and give you butter tea and entertain you.
In the village, they have a culture and tradition to, when some guests coming here, so they try to bring their local product like ara.
Oh, arak, yeah. Yes, well, people do like their ara, particularly in these eastern villages where they brew it up in their own houses.
So that is the something they are just sharing with you.
It's barley beer, basically, and they love inviting you in and giving you ara. We had one evening in a village called Pemi, where we went into this house and loads of the neighbours came in, and we got going with the old arak, and before you knew it, we were dancing around in the room, you know, to the sounds of Bhutanese singing, and you know, we had a really lovely time, actually, really jolly time with our Bhutanese pals. And the tradition there is that once you've drunk your little bowl of arra, then you must drink at least 3 bowls, otherwise it is rude. So, you know, you can try to stop them and they won't, so they insist that you have at least 3 bowls. They're quite strong, actually, quite strong alcohol, yeah. So this is the campsite after Ugyen Choling Palace. Great walk up today through the forest. We're now at about 12,500 feet. On our way to the Rodang La, which will be tomorrow. Huge herd of yaks down the valley. Camping, so you know, proper camping trek with a cook and lads to do the camp work. Get up at about 7, off by about 7:30, 9 o'clock. And then walk for 4 or 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, and horses to carry the kit. Oh my goodness. Taking the prayer flag down. Show. Show. Come on, you silly horse. Come on, boys. That's a good boy. A guide, obviously English-speaking Bhutanese guide. So the Rodang La particularly has got lots of legends associated with it. And it's very well known for its Yeti sightings. Actually, we did see a pair of interesting prints in the mud in the jungle. They're quite unusual. They're unusual prints, and you can see they're really distinct toe prints. Could it be a human? I haven't seen a human print like that before. It is a strange print, and it was just down below the Rodang La. The Rodang La is one of the highlights because you get these wonderful views of the Eastern Himalaya from the top of the pass. And there are interesting remnants of the old royal red rice route. So in ancient times they'd built quite elaborate series of rocky stepped paths. So there is one particular place just after the Rodang La which winds down a steep mountainside, you know, zigzagging down into the forest towards the bottom. They must have put an enormous amount of work and effort into creating it. And before the days of the roads, people used to use these paths with their mules or their horses or their yaks to get from one end of the country to the other, and it would take weeks to make those journeys. These are the 2 horsemen that brought us over from Ugyen Choling to Pemi. It is a chance to step back from the modern Bhutan because it takes you for days on end away from any kind of road, yeah. In the east, you know, in these valleys to the east, there are some beautiful zongs, the big monastery fortresses. There are huge chortens or stupas. And the really huge bronze statue of Padmasambhava or Guru Rinpoche. So this thing, built at a place called Tangmachu, is built by hand in a completely off the beaten track area. You come across this thing in the middle of nowhere and you think, what on earth is this doing here? And it was built by some reincarnate lama because of a prophecy some ancient Tibetan saint had made, that one day a statue of Guru Rinpoche will bring peace and prosperity to the world and sentient beings forevermore. So he built this huge thing, managed to raise money from, I think, some American institution or something. I mean, I think it cost in excess of $2 million to build this thing. It's really is. It's quite spectacular. When we started off up towards the Dongla, we went through a patch of forest there where there were beautiful tree orchids growing on the trees, and that very light cane, bamboo cane, in great thickets. And I remember saying to the local guy, you know, do you have red pandas here? And he said, oh yes, Mr. Berrylar, many red pandas here. I've never seen one. I've never seen one in the wild. I mean, they're very elusive. This is the last day of the Rodang La trek. Another nice little thing that happened to us at the end of the trek was that we came down out of the jungle, out of the mountains, and the first little farmstead that we came to had got a whole series of cultivated fields down below it. They have a very unique way of scaring away marauding wild boar or deer who would come into their farm and eat all their crops. They'd built a fence, but they'd also set up the most incredible deterrent. I'm going to show it to you now. And it was a stuffed tiger. It is, as you can see, a stuffed lion. Which I called a stuffed lion in my video clip, but actually a stuffed tiger. It certainly seemed to do the job. Their crops were all there fine, yeah, and they kept the yetis away.
Yes.
One very friendly village dog. You can come back to England with me. My girls would absolutely adore you. At the end of the trek, you come to the largest of the townships in the east, Tashigang, with its magnificent fortress there, and then you drive out through the very far eastern end of Bhutan at a town called Sandrup Yongar, stop the night there, and then you drive to Guwahati to fly back to Delhi, crossing the Brahmaputra River on the way. So here we are crossing the Brahmaputra River. So it is an interesting exit from Bhutan.